There it is. I think we are live. Okay, we got a good amount of people here showing up. Thank you so much for everyone who's in the chat, stopping by for my end of year. I'm playing with a new microphone setup tonight, so I've got my headphones on, hoping everything is coming through clearly for you. Please let me know if I need to change anything. But I got a bunch of stuff here to go over tonight, and hoping everyone at this point in the evening, everything goes according to plan. So, um, this is my end of 2023 stream. Just to let everyone know, I was initially planning to jump over and be a part of the heavy metallurgy end of year thing, but things didn't work out. Some stuff was going on with Corinne and I and our beloved cat, which we unfortunately had to put down. So I wasn't able to join that evening. Uh, Thinking about it last year, Zoller and I sat down for like around 8 hours for our stream. So hopefully tonight goes a little bit quicker. But I wanted to do this primarily because I don't really do collection updates on my channel. It's just not something I'm really interested in. But um, I do want to at least talk about the stuff that I've been listening to and I've picked up. So this won't just be my end of year sort of deal. It'll also be a chance to kind of talk about things that have happened with me and my collecting over this past year. A few special things that are sort of unrelated to actually picking up records that just has to do with you meeting people here in the Metal VC. And uh, I've kind of got a unique opportunity this past year to visit a few things. So just want to say hello to everyone who's in the chat. Hopefully, I'm coming through loud and clear here, and I'm up on my stream. I've been able to put together this at a higher resolution, so hopefully I'm coming through fine. But let me know in the chats if I need to change anything. I've got a different mic set up. I can alter the video if I need to. Nevertheless, so let's just talk about a couple of things before we get into the records. Um, yeah, I'm happy to see everyone here. We got Alan. Good to see you, Alan, Mike, Peter, Brian. I saw Tyler, James. Okay. People are filing in. Before I start to talk about kind of some records, I wanted to go over just things that have come across my what I think about what's going on in metal in over the past year and where things potentially are headed, how I sort of view the year. So um yes, and Rick has arrived. Marty, what's up? Good to see you guys. I'll try and keep pace with the chat this evening, but this is a one-man show, and I am cornered in right now between microphone and records, CDs that are all flying around me, trying to get this organized for this evening. But um, so I just wanted to start with this because probably while I'll be talking about records tonight, probably the biggest highlight for me this year was actually getting a chance to meet some of the people in the metal VC. I don't want to, you know, I'm going to go over my favorite records, but if I did not start this stream giving a shout out to um, Marty and Ben here, people who are content creators in the metal VC, but if I'd be remiss without talking about TJ and Jim. For those who don't know, there was a show that came down to Louisville this past year, and I'm an hour away. So it was an ideal opportunity to meet Ben and Marty in person. For those who don't know, back when I was living in Kansas, Ben actually reached out to me. This was during the COVID streams and brought me on one evening, and he kind of opened the door to this being something that I could get into. Wade, how you doing? Um, And so, that goes back, what, to 2020? Um, and, So I to meet him in person and just get a chance to hang out, we sat down for lunch and met up with Jim. Obviously, Marty's kind of was so kind to invite me on to the, album club. "Hey, Phil, how you doing?" And so that's become like a consistent part of my YouTube life, every Wednesday getting together with the guys and talking about records. And, through that, have had a chance to meet a bunch of people who are contributing to heavy metallurgy. It's just a really cool opportunity. So, getting a chance to go, I pulled like we have here, um, the Glorious Dead record, and Panopticon, and yes, like, I love these records, and I've been this is pretty new, so, I haven't spun it too much just because, you know, it came into the door not that long ago, but, they're records that define my year in a way that is completely unrelated to, like, a top 10, top 15, top 20, whatever of your year. It's like memories I've created with friends, and that's to me more important. Like records will come and go, but a chance to actually hang out with them. So I did want to pull out here. I've got a couple of clips I just grabbed quick. Like, so the first one I should have here for you is actually of the Glorious Dead on stage. So if they're watching, they hopefully get a chance to check this out. I'll just pull it up quick like here. It's not too long. Awesome. Okay. So there's the Glorious Dead guys doing their thing. And the next one I have here is actually Ben got a chance to jump on stage for a Panopticon song. So here he is. All right. Anyway, so shout out. I just wanted to say it was great. I see TJ came here to say hello as well. So hopefully, Jim, if you jump in the chat here and get a chance to catch it up me later on, it was it was great to meet everyone and hang out over the weekend. It was super cool. Hopefully, get a chance to Hey, there we go. Josh jumped in the chat. What's up, man? There we go. Yes. You had a dream last night, with Craig, okay. Yes, sadly, no, Craig will not be, around this year, but maybe we'll revisit that one time, and I'll be prepared for, an 8-hour stream, for end of year stuff, but hey, what's up, Simon? Good to see you, man. Um, yes, I will get a chance to go hang out, and I'll be up in Traverse City here this May, so I'll get a chance to visit the guys up there. Anyway, So I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about that this year and how important that was, just to kind of like take a moment to pause. As much as we get on YouTube here and talk about records, and here it's easy to make sort of top 10 lists and get in the habit of that, without sort of reflecting a little bit more about what was really important for me this past year, which was one, to get a chance to meet people who I've got to know through this YouTube thing. So big shout out to Marty and to Ben and Jim, TJ. Like, I hopefully get to. I cannot wait to hang out with everyone again, and we'll see you this upcoming Wednesday as well for Album Club. So that taken out of the way, let's just talk about a little bit things in 2023. I'm gonna put something on in the. Craig is dreamy. Hey, that shower clip. I have to say, no hesitation, no apologies. I don't know if I'll ever. There we go. I got naked on YouTube this past year, so there's something for the. How many people can say that, right? Um, anyway, and I want to apologize once again, Alan, to Mel. I'm so sorry for the trauma that I inflicted. Hopefully, she's recovering. Anyway, let's talk about 2023, because the heavy metallurgy crew kind of took a moment, and I wanted to um, circle back to the moment sort of reflecting on the year in terms of the records that came out. Sorry for the therapy, Alan. Um, so I don't know about everyone here in the chat, but like I will sort of hunt down um, specific, like maybe a record will come along every single year that will surprise me and kind of open a new door. But most of the time, there's certain sort of hallmarks I'm trying to find. And so one of the questions I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit here, and I'll put it up in the chat and um, kind of bring it up and we can chat it up. Um, there were a few sort of weak spots for me this year. And I couldn't quite find a record that sort of met certain criteria. So I kind of wrote down some notes and wanted to talk about the genres at least, or the places I was looking for a record that didn't quite hit the mark for me. So the first one for me is kind of a bit more of the pagan style black metal, sort of Viking style black metal, if you will, or um, I really didn't find a record. Now, to back up this claim, I wanted to know, at least like put an example out for what I'm talking about, in terms of albums in the past that I do feel I've hit the mark, that I am here. I'll grab a couple examples. I tried to do this in order so we'd get this right. So, James, you think thrash? I'm gonna have a couple on my list. Hopefully, they will speak to you. But so in this is, I think, the Havakruno release from 2017. Like, this is hands down for me, end of record, end of the year material that'd be on a top 10. Um, last year, the pronouncing this correctly. Okay, Black Pyre, Peter, you're saying that's one. But this Varducci Viter, I could be completely. I'm actually, I'm almost certain I'm missing that. But last year this record came out, and this definitely hit the mark for me. Just examples of recent releases that uh, absolutely worked for me. This year, I didn't quite find a record that did that. Now, as close as we got, and I at the heavy metal Viking guys are in the chat. They may talk about this. So this Aldridge release, um, this was really good, uh, but I still think it doesn't have the scope that I wanted. Right, by comparison to the records the Havakruno, or another one is Arcetier License. Like, those records have an incredible sense of scale, um, and I mean, this is the same guy who put out this Albionic Hermeticism, I think is the how you pronounce this. But both these records are, or both these albums, really good. Dark Adversary put this out on CD. I think uh, Amor Fati picked them up for a vinyl release. Um, you know what? I will say, Mr. Land, this I really did not connect. So the Grave Ripper, I haven't spent enough time with. Um, and Hell Ripper's never really struck a chord with me. I know a lot of people that made it for a lot of people's end of year list. So I might just be missing something there, but it never quite. I do have two thrash records on my list though. So yeah, License is amazing. And I know Alan may be talking about this record in a future heavy metallurgy deal, but this just came in, this EP, which showed up right at the end of the year. It's two songs, like 40 minutes long. Super cool. Uh, but I love this band. Their past two releases have been exceptional. Um, I absolutely love them. This is the new EP that just arrived, like I want to say 2 days ago for me. Um, I mean, Alan, if you want this for a review, it's all yours. But I absolutely love this band. So that style of black metal for me definitely. Um, hey, Peter, I can see Peter. Yep, that you'll see me talking about that record a little bit later. Once again, Chilean thrash. I'm gonna say it as many times as I need to in order to stick. Um, as we keep going here, I did want to play something in the background. So let me just do that and we'll switch gears here. So the record I'm going to play, this is a new project by a band out of Portland, I believe. So they're members of Triumvir Foul. This is the demo that came out here this past year, and uh, Black Gangrene, I believe, is the label that put it out. But this is yeah, Collier d'Ombre, I think how it's pronounced. And what is it, Vlad? Vlad, good to see you, Vlad. Okay. Well, there you go. Check this out. This is I'll play this in the background here, and I've got a new setting for you. So as we're putting this, if anyone knows, Triumvir and Foul is a bit more of like a black and death metal project. This is we'll get it going in the back and we can let this go. I'm experimenting with a new microphone that should pick up this a little bit better in the background, but hopefully it can turn it down as needed. Okay, well, that is going in the background. I'll keep an eye on that in terms of the levels. Okay. Once again, we are listening to Collier d'Ombre, project out of Portland. This to me sounds a little bit, I mean, it has what do I want to say, like very early Ruins of Beverest going on. Like if you stripped away, so Black Gangrenes, they're going to show up again here. Probably a label that will get more and more attention. There's another record that from that label I'll be talking about tonight. But this has got like a different, so the pacing to it reminds me of early Ruins of Beverest, like making that transition out of Nagelfar into something that was a bit doomier and heavier and sort of was a blending a little bit of genres. But this label predominantly puts out a much more raw black metal. So if you sort of take that as the framework for a sound like early Ruins of Everest, that probably describes them. Once again, they're coming from Triumvir Foul, so that gives you another sort of sense of background. I'll let this intro play, and once it actually kicks into a song, I'll jump into that for you. Okay, so that's back there. Yes, we got a bunch of people who were making recommendations here for me. Okay, and I'll have to go back and revisit. There's like when you and the this is a shout out to Tyler. When the hiking fellows get together, I usually leave with like 15 different album recommendations. Tyler's actually been kind enough when I've chatted with him to kind of give me his recommendations during the course of the year, because that crew definitely knows their pagan black metal. So, um, it's interesting. So Frosty, I have yet to actually listen to the new Sadist record. And I will say I probably we got an incantation. I maybe listened to that a little, but of all the old school Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, Autopsy, incantation, Suffocation, out of all the like big name death metal bands, I listened a little bit to the incantation and Suffocation. The rest of it I didn't spend much time with, and maybe I'm missing out, but for some reason that does not as appeal to me as there we go. Marty's telling me I failed. I know you loved it, but I just don't have that much interest right now in listening to why would I listen to the incantation when you can spin Glorious Dead? There we go. That was my attitude for 2023. So maybe you can correct me, but there we go. I've heard a lot. Yeah, see, Wade, I've heard good things about the Suffocation, but I just, for some reason, like the desire to get back and to actually spend time with those really old bands who are still putting out quality work. Just I never really got there. So, nevertheless, let's talk about. Oh, Phalos for the Sadists. Okay, we'll talk about this, Josh. That's going to come up here later. Because this is another one that I'll recommend your way. But okay, here we go. So let's talk about other genres that let me down this past year. That was the original comment. I'll find it here and post it once again. See, this is why it would be nice to have another wingman. I could just keep track of all this nonsense. But the question, once again, what other genres let you down in 2023? Okay, so I mentioned my pagan black metal take. Okay, while I'm grabbing that, let's put this on in the background. Okay. Well, I tried. Okay. But let that just play in the background then. If it's going to be a hassle, we don't have to worry about it. I will put a list of the records that I'm talking about or played during the course of this stream. And then in addition to that, I do have 4 other sort of long form discussions I had with some friends over the course of the years. All those should be posted in the comments for you. Yes. So Epic Doom. I think Rick made a mention of this the other day. I really had a hard time with a Epic Doom release in 2023 that met my standards. So once again, I will bring examples as to what I'm thinking about here. So this is Capilla Ardiente, The Siege, which I liked a lot. This is from 2019, I believe. And then a couple years ago, Preserved in Time. Okay. This is by Wheel, German Epic Doom band that I loved a lot. Man, I did not find strong. So a lot of people were talking about the Gotham release, and to me, that was just kind of too gothy to be an Epic Doom record. Like, I really love Solstice, and I know some of those band members share like a history with that band, but it just was too sort of sad, melancholy, downtrodden for me that I just did not connect with that record for me to be like an end of the year list. There are a couple others that I'm going to shout out here because no one has talked about them. But these are the two records that I actually think did really, really well recently that I did not get in 2023. So, and then to round this out, okay. So to round it out, I'm going to go with. I really did not get a traditional, or you want to say a Black Death record by that standard. See, okay, Wade says Gotham was the album of the year. From it bumped off Majesties. Okay, well, I mean, interesting. If it just, I'm guessing Wade, you're a big Solstice fan as well. Everyone's like happy with the way things are going. Burnout in the traditional heavy metal scene. I mean, I did a stream with Sacred Outcry and Megaton Sword, which would be on my end of year list. But yeah, Wade's a Solstice fan. I will say though, like I pay attention to the. There we go. See if this works out. I pay attention to the new wave of traditional heavy metal YouTube site, and the amount of content that is like poured into that. It's just a glimpse into how much I'm just the amount of noise, the signal to noise ratio in the genre. I will concede definitely needs some help. Okay, I think people are shouting out. Okay, so Diabolic Full Moon. I did hear about that record, and then the Stangaragel EP. That I will. So on the label that EP was released, Vlad, I'm going to have a recommend or have an album that I want to talk about here this evening. So if you maybe you'll catch something, and I won't be talking about that particular EP, but there's a new band or a newer band that came out on that same label that I do want to talk about this evening. So hey, there we go. Megaton Sword. He's on it. Awesome. Thanks, Frosty. Check out. I think their new one's hands down their oddest record in their catalog. I think their earlier couple, their earlier album and EP are a bit more traditional. Yeah, there we go. Mike, you got it. It's just it's quite a turn off. I totally understand it. I totally understand with that. Okay, yes, Heavy Load did come out with a new record, which was kind of like it's completely got slept on. I think someone did bring it up on Heavy Metallurgy though. I don't know who it was. Maybe Alan or Marty in the chat will let me know. But I want to say someone brought that up one of their streams to talk about how much they enjoyed it. It's just a classic early epic heavy metal band that just sort of faded into oblivion. So with some quintessential early releases. Okay, let's move on here. So the last one I was trying to get to before I got distracted was I didn't get like a Black Death or a War Metal record that I truly loved this past year. So I mean, I did a review for Profane Order. I did grab that record just to talk about it a little bit, but it honestly, some of the releases uh that I want to talk about we'll all use for the metal tag video. But like, here's one. This is Scorn Aesthetics by Embrace of Thorns. I really, this is probably the most consistent sort of Black Death, war metal band, whatever you want to call it, out right now. Band out of Greece. On a consistent basis, they put out really high quality stuff within the genre. And man, that's from 2018, I believe. I could be wrong. 2018, but Scorn Aesthetics. And this is a Diocletian Gassundrian 2015, I think. Anyway, this may not be for a lot of people that kind of their jam, but I, on an annual basis, want at least one great record from the genre. These are recent releases that I use as like a high mark, and I don't know if anyone else has heard them out there, but I'm sort of chasing this. I didn't get, a record of this caliber from these kind of bands in 2023. Okay. Yeah, like here. So the thing was, I wanted the songs of this Profane Order release, but with the production of this Infernal Curse release. I don't know. Now, Simon did recommend one for me. I'll have to go back. I think it was a band that came out on Sentient Ruin. He did recommend one for me to check out. There we go. He's on it. Disimperium gave me the war metal I needed. Okay, well, I will. Am I right, Simon? That was a Sentient Ruin release, all right? Now they put out a lot of war metal stuff, so I'll have to check that out. But this this record by Infernal Curse. I mean, this band's come a long way. I saw some of their earlier releases, and it was kind of forgettable. This was a big step up for me. Came out in Iron Bonehead this past year, and I got the promo for yes, this Gassundrian. Oh, what I put it away, but yeah, the Gassundrian Diocletian is awesome. Is it 2014? You could be right, Peter. It could be a decade old. And they've made some band changes over the years that I don't think have served them well. Hi, Mark Samuth, I need to catch up on. Okay. So I was Sentient Ruin there. Perfect. Let's move to something that I did notice, or I guess a different question I kind of want to pose for people is where they saw the strengths for the past year. And personally for me, if you had told me like we had a record, it was kind of like the more progressive avant-garde black metal bands, whether that's your style or not, it just was super popular, right? I think we had a lot of bands playing in that style, important bands that came out this past year. And I know, for example, like there's just on I Void Hanger alone, there's like 3 releases or 2 releases. One that was released, I'm going to pull it up here so I can talk about it because there's a few Hallmark bands that most people have probably heard of. But let me just get to this quick here. And while I'm doing this, let's flip the record, get some music going. Even though it's not audible to you, at least it changes my experience. Right. Okay. So I guess where I was going is you had like early in the year, Dodheimsgard, whether you dug that record or not, they're an undeniable, yeah, and so they're an undeniable force, and it's so pioneering. So for them to come out with a new record that I think did really well, a lot of people liked it. I know it made some of the end year lists. Um, but you got so you have first generation kind of experimental black metal. You have Blut Aus Nord comes out with a new record. Um, But then you have like kind of second generation. Phantofaxis comes out with a record. Thy Dark and Shade comes out with a record. So bands that sort of emerged at a different time period. They're yeah, they come out, and then you have like newer bands. For example, so the one that I was thinking of is I don't know how to spell this. Wagner, not the classical composers, but Wyrgher. They're like the Ungfell guys. That crew, they put out a sort of a record on Ivoenhanger that was playing in that style. Vertebra Atlantis, they're another band. These are all Ivoenhanger releases, which they're kind of known for that. But they came out with records. So you had like 2, 3, now 4 generations of wild avant-garde black metal bands coming out with records that, for me personally, didn't make my end of year list. Yeah, so Black Medium Current was a favorite for you, Peter. Big year for black metal. And I'm one of those guys who's, I have to say, Wade, not up on the progressive side of Enslaved's catalog. So I know there are some people who are going to kill me for that comment, but I kind of like their earlier Norwegian stuff. There's one of those bands that can do no wrong for some fans, but for me, I like a very particular era for that band. Talking about the Gauntlet record, huh? I love Batman. So I have not. Is that a Gauntlet Ring, Vlad? I think I know Gauntlet Ring. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about there, or if it's something else. Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, I might say this, Marty. Blut Aus Nord for me is one of those like a band now that has sort of. There are 2 records for me in the catalog with the Work Which Transformed God and Dialogue of the Stars. Like, those records are so important. Everything else that band could potentially release, I don't see those 2 being sort of eclipsed. So at this point, I'm just a fan of the band and picking up new releases. None of it's terrible. Like, I don't hate any of it, but I just always feel like, as a fan, I like to follow along. And I guess at this age, right, here in my late 30s, I kind of have come to that time point in my life. Yeah. If you liked the Lucifer 2, the earlier record is also pretty good. You might want to check that out, Frosty. What could we got? I'm a classic fan. Power, 19 Man Outsider. There we go. Well, I mean, so 19 Man Allen reviewed that one. I have not spent a lot of time with it, but they're a pretty, well-established band within the genre. Okay. Rick, we're in the Matrix. All right, I love it. So I don't think we're quite there. But and out of the genres that came out this year, I thought it was unique. Like, it's not just black metal at this point has reached a level of diversity to where you have like multiple generations of bands playing in a specific style that sort of developed it. For me to see Thy Dark and Shade and Phantofaxis, bands who had been sort of on, I know there were like EPs along the way, but almost decade since a full length was released, I thought those records would have more of an impact for me. I did a Phantofaxis review for Heavy Metallurgy, but by the end of the year, I kind of just wanted a bit more like traditional black metal. I kind of got burnt out on it. And it's one of those things like, give me 3 months. I may completely switch my stance. But when I was making this end of year list, I really didn't end up gravitating towards it. Yeah. Mort is definitely a soul losing experience. For sure. I completely agree with you there, Peter. Okay. So I've spent enough time now. I'm 40 minutes in. I did a little bit of, you know, glimpses into things that I've been enjoying this past year. Let's talk about some records that potentially didn't come across your radar that I want to chat about. So, first one, we'll get a CD here. Um, this is a good sort of transition album. The Gauntlet, Dark Steel and Fire. Okay, I'm completely unfamiliar with that one. I will check that out, Vlad. Okay, so the band I'm going to talk about here is Blut. Um, this is just I guess a mini album. I've seen it listed as a mini album on Medieval Prophecy, which is the label that it was released on, and but I think on Metal Archives it has it listed as an EP. So it's over whatever, like 32 minutes, I think. But this is on Medieval Prophecy. So last year, the Forbidden Temple made my list, and so I kind of kept tabs on this. This is does not sound like Forbidden Temple. Almost shares a bit more of like a sonic personality with, like Perverted Ceremony. Oh hey, so we did see. So Tyler's familiar with it. Yes. Okay. So Simon's familiar with it, but Ghost Pass of Septarition, I believe, is the album here. But this was one that definitely like caught my attention at the end of the year. I was happy to get the CD release. It sold out super quickly. But I'm going to play here a clip here for you. I got a couple of these lined out. So let's jump into that quick. Yeah, the thing that's too complicated about that, but this project for me, they sound, I guess, if they talk about sounding a little bit like Arcanum, Sweden's Arcanum. What I got from this release though was much more like the triumphant aspect of like Judas Iscariot. So like the peak time period for that band when they aren't doing just sort of Dark Throne clone stuff. But this is so good, super catchy. It's just big melodies, sort of driving tempos. This is just as a medium, it was like the perfect length for my drive into work every day. So I'd be in my Volkswagen blaring this as loud as I could possibly tolerate it in my car on the way to work. But Icona Black Metal, I cannot wait for a full length from this project. Super catchy stuff here. I'm going to leave you with a closing clip here, and we'll move on to our next choice. This is another little clip from Blut. All right. So we got our first sort of turn, right? That was a black metal record, and I've got a little list. I got to cross them off. Trying to stay organized here. I'm not Alan, right? So there's something to aspire to. But let's move on. We got one more CD. So there was a question that was posed to the panel during the Heavy Metallurgy end of year thing about death metal. And I don't want to jump into that because I'm going to do a whole separate video talking about the state of death metal. There's a very special record that's has an upcoming sort of celebration or birthday that I want to talk about, but I'm going to just table that discussion for now. And for me, death metal, I wanted something a little bit different. I don't know how else to say it. Like, my tastes did not align, I think, with what a lot of people were picking. And it's not that I have anything against progressive or technical metal or anything like that. So I know people, a lot of chose with the Horrendous and the Tumult. I just did not have an appetite for it. I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of missing darker, faster death metal. That's just in the place that I'm in right now. That late 90s, early 2000s is for me like peak period. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. Okay, yes. So we got, hey, Jimmy, yes, Jimmy's in the chat. Good to see you, man. Okay. Yeah, definitely. If you dig Judas Iscariot, you'll enjoy that Orc Blut, right? Which I should mention. I mean, I guess it shares the same name from an EP, right? I think, is it Abigor, right? Abigor, the Abigor EP with this by the same name. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there in the chat, but I do think that's the name of the Abigor EP. At a much more primitive time span of that band's history. So anyway, here's a album that came out this past year, and as soon I knew it was coming. I'm obsessed with this band. If Simon's still there, he will know because he hit me up immediately, being like, "Hey, you should check out this band." And I'm like, "Simon, I got you." So here we go. So this is Garroted. They're from Kansas City. I think they may have moved to California. But when I was living in Kansas, I did like a section of the show that was all, sort of centered around local bands. And this is 100% up my alley. You can tell they were like born and raised on Angel Corpse. But that if you dig like Centurion is a good example, or like the kind of Brazilian death metal like Rebellion. Okay, thank you for filling me in on the Zoth. Yeah, Zoth. It had that like power metal solo stuff though. I know you'll get a glimpse. So just to hear what I was talking about and the kind of death metal I've been missing, I'm gonna pull up this Garroted and we'll play a clip of this band that I'm absolutely obsessed with. This was like as soon as I saw it, they signed to Lava Dome Records, which is Lava Dome on an annual basis. Last year they released a Heaving Earth LP that I absolutely loved. That is a label now that I can almost on an annual basis, I can at least trust for one great record. And I'm going to play this Garroted clip here for you. All right. So if you get a little bit different, just the pacing and the aggression of this record is something that I miss from death metal. There was a time period where everyone was playing super fast, and it kind of had that like a satanic sound to it. I guess it's no longer in fashion, but it's 100% my style. Yeah, I mean, people are talking about the Zoth. They're total shredders, but yeah, not my thing by any means. I'm much more into the Garroted sound. So, but this band, I think I'm happy to see them move to a label like Lava Dome where they're going to get much more recognition and praise. They're at a phase in their career like this is the best production they've had. They're on a label that they're well suited for. When I found out this record was coming out, and I was watching all their stuff on Bandcamp and YouTube and stuff like that, them in the studio, hands down one of the fastest purchases I've made here in 2023. This is a band that I cannot get enough of. Here, I'll get one more clip of Garroted before we move on to the next release. Okay. All right. So from there, let's talk about an LP. we'll move on from that and we'll talk about an LP that we got going here. So I do want to. Yes, it does rule. Nothing clicked. Here, Vlad's talking. Nothing clicked. However, Nuclear Winter. Yeah, Nuclear Winter's a good one. Who's someone? Is that the um Undergang guys? Who runs Nuclear Winter? I want to say that's a who's in charge of that label, but they know what they're doing, and I know they've got some great bands on that label. Not a lot of stuff comes out. Yes, check this band out. I once again new favorite long sleeve. That maybe this will show up in the end of year metal tag stuff. I want to talk about a one. I think I only have one trad record here. But I will pull that out here next. Okay, so this is Danava, and you may not have heard of this band. And I only came across it because I was looking through a head split distro, and I pulled it up, and they're doing a CD release of this. I'm sorry, a cassette release of this, and so I pulled up. I dug the album artwork here. Went to go check it out, and it did not. It was not something that I would think Head Split would release. So, let me just play a clip of this, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. This is so the vinyl. Like I said, Head Split's covering the cassette, but I believe this is on Peachtree. TP. There we go. I've never heard of TP Records. Metal Archives has them listed as a stoner band, but yeah, let me just get into the clip, and then you can get your thoughts of what this band sounds like. Right, like to me, this is way more of a like for fans, new wave of British heavy metal. I hear more than anything on this album. It's but if fans for like if for frame of reference to people who may not know that genre very well and think it's like another Iron Maiden clone, it's way more in line with like Angel Witch or Satan. Yeah, it's super like the guitar works great, but there's an energy to this record that sounds a little bit uh different than I would say like the big sort of stadium filling arena rock sort of that era of the early 80s. This sounds a little bit smaller and um I don't want to say like I don't want to say raw necessarily because it's a well produced record, but it's a very different kind of traditional heavy metal sound that is clearly rooted in the new wave of British heavy metal specifically. Yeah, I'm gonna play this clip again for you. This is the same song from this band, Janava. Right? So tons of energy. If it's a band that I totally would have flown under the radar, especially because as advertised as a stoner rock band, does not hit the mark for me at all. But um, for people who are looking for a different kind of traditional heavy metal that sounds a bit more explicitly rooted in a like raw up pace sound of the new wave of British heavy metal, this is one to check out. Anyway, this kind of took me by surprise this year, and I really enjoyed it. Guitar work is exceptional on it. Okay, moving on. What do we want to go to next? Let's talk about thrash for a moment. Okay, so I actually saw I did believe Jurgen talked about this record, and I'm happy someone brought it up because this um, record by Inculter, holy shit. Um, this sounds so. I guess a brief sort of point of conversation here. There is probably no more volatile source material to play as an aspiring thrash band than 1980s Bay Area thrash, right? Like using that as a source of inspiration can easily go wrong. It's just so many bands that use that kind of influence, and it sounds like really cheap and insincere. Um, so when you find a band that does it correctly, uh, I it really stands out and is like a breath of fresh air. Um, okay, Frosty, you're out of here. Thanks so much for stopping by, checking this out. I know it's going to be a little bit later, but I appreciate you stopping by for sure. Yeah, and Culture rules. Okay, so Fatal Visions was their release, I think, back in 2019. That was really good, but it was also hyper aggressive, um, in a good way, right? Like it was an aggressive thrash record. And I guess a quick moment of conversation here about that. I'm gonna play a CD in the background. Okay, so for my CD selection, I mentioned that when I got a chance to meet Ben in Louisville, he gave me some bootleg. So shout out to Brain Smasher, and this is Tyrant Trooper, Insane Sickness. We'll put that on in the background, right? So shout out to Brain Smasher. And in addition to that, I've got this is a Death Rune release. All these bootlegs made by the legendary Brain Smasher. And anyway, that'll serve to play in the background here. Okay, so where was I? Thrash metal. So what I'll say is this, like this band, okay, so for around the 2000s, there was probably two different ways that thrash metal could have gone. One was you were doing like the kind of joke municipal waste, which was at some point like I could say, for some fans potentially refreshing just to hear a thrash metal band playing in an older style. But like the other side of that coin was bands felt they had, in order to gain legitimacy, playing a certain kind of aggressive voice. Like we don't want to be lumped in with sort of this pizza thrash. So their only avenue for legitimacy or credibility within the thrash was to be like the most extreme thrash band out there. So you saw a lot of blackened thrash, death thrash, um, and which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But it just was, I think, it proves at least to some degree the point that if you wanted to make a traditional thrash record, it could easily sound dated, and that most often is where the sound went. This new release by Inculter, the same way I feel it about some of the bands that are playing out of Chile, like Critical Defiance, they get a 1980s thrash metal aesthetic 100% right. It does not sound insincere. It does not sound exploitative. It is 100% like they're who they are, and they play. And this record, it was a turn, like to get 80s Metallica and Slayer right in a way that leans into melody and more complex song structure, extended dynamics. Like this record is a great step up for them as a band. For detractors who liked their previous work that was a bit more faster, um, man, it's all good. But this, I'll just play a clip and you can tell me what you people in the chat what you think. What I'm realizing is my clips are getting cut a little bit short, but it's all good. That's something although you can check it out on your own if you really feel the need to later on. But anyway, I've Jurgen talked about this record at length. I absolutely love this record. If I had to do a top 5, it would be in it. Um, but yeah, In Culture, Morbid Origin, and Edge Circle Productions wins the award for Best Thrash Metal Label in 2023. And also things that I missed this past year. Um, Unspeakable Acts. Unspeakable Acts had a very quiet year. I think they just released one EP. I don't know what's going on. But Peter's saying he's Municipal Waste saw him third time. Ended up in the pit. Okay, well, sounds like a great time. I'm having a hard time envisioning you in the pit, Peter, for some reason. Um, yeah. I'm 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 telling you, Jimmy, like it gets a then specific era of like thrash metal coming out of California from 1984 to 1988. Like it gets that right in a way that few records, I mean, like a handful of records in the 2000s have been able to do. If there's any, you know how long Jurgen has been a thrash fan. Like, look at him just lauding praise on his end of year list on this record. He told me like he's been into thrash for whatever 40 years almost. He just did a stream with Marty and Alan talking about 1987. Like if someone who's been into thrash that long, he absolutely gives this record all sorts of praise. Two large pints of ale and a couple of joints score is what Jurgen would give this record. Hey Maya, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah. So if you don't trust me, trust someone who's been listening to thrash for as long as Jurgen has, and you know what's up. Anyway, so that's In Culture, Morbid Origin. Okay. Didn't have any music in the background here. I feel uncomfortable. All right. So let's move on here. I'm going to go to, let's talk about some Doom. So, like I said, I didn't get a Doom release that I wanted in 20 Epic Doom, I should say. But I did get some more classical Doom records that I absolutely love. One that I have to, no one has talked about this, and it's not really anyone's fault. Because if there are Doom, I don't know who would come across this, but I'm just saying. Cruz del Sur, Gates of Hell, Sun and Moon Records, Svart. I'm trying to, who else? Rising Above, like who else is potentially putting out Doom records? Please sign Purification, because this band, I don't know what is up with Wrathchild Records if they are now a defunct label. But this band, I mean, I ordered something from Wrathchild by Purification, I want to say 2 years ago, and I still haven't received it. And I've given up, but I actually don't think the label is functioning in any professional capacity. This Purification, if you don't know, it's a doom band out of Oregon. They were signed to that label. This was an independently released record entitled Ethelstone. And this is, I'm trying to make a parallel as to like, it's too probably young in this band's career, but you know, for as little exposure as Pentagram had during their sort of formative years, and everyone was playing catch up later on, I'm really like Purification. I'm making a stand here, an appeal to the Doom labels in the world. Please sign this band. They need more distribution. They should not be in their like fourth full length, floundering and looking for label to sign them and promote them and carry them. Purification is awesome. So this came out like in the November, early December. That could be a little bit later, but it was towards the end of the year. It had completely no hyper and exposure behind it. And it's arguably their best record to date. So it bears the name Ethelstone from, it's a historical reference to, I want to say, a British officer who is stationed in Afghanistan in an attempt to sort of thwart Napoleon's influence and sort of as his power and influence grew further east into Eastern Europe and parts of Southeast Asia, the British Empire sought to sort of like challenge him. So this officer anyway wrote about his time in Afghanistan fighting sort of Islamic warriors. And the album is entitled after Ethelstone because it sort of positions one of the songs from the vantage point of the Islamic, warriors who were fighting against him and sort of against imperial aggression into their part of the world. It sort of takes a slant from religious warfare, essentially. But there are a couple of songs here that are all in reference to sort of religious warfare and different things that people have done in the name of God, violence that they've committed in the name of God. It makes great subject matter for a Doom release. It's over an hour long. But man, here, let me just play a clip for you and I'll keep going. But I really like this record. Right. So it's that kind of Doom. Now, I know early on in their career, they just were a drum and bass duo. I think they've expanded the role now to make sure I think it's a 3 or 4 piece full band. But hands down, one of the best Doom bands going on in America specifically. In terms of traditional Doom, no one has talked about this. I just want to say, for no other reason, that there's not a real label behind this band at this point in their career promoting them. They've been at it now over the past, I want to say 5 or 4 years, putting out great releases to not enough fanfare. I will not stand for it. So this is, once again, Purification, Ethelstone. I'll pass this on, and we'll move on to our next release. All right. So that moves us from a Doom release. I'll jump back here. I don't know if anyone heard of. It looks like, yeah. Thank you, Alan. They do get no publicity. Would you say the Pentagram comparison is fair at all? I mean, I know it's not as big of a deal, right? Like, it's not a legendary band by any means. But in terms of an American band, okay. Yes, there we go. Now we have some Doom people in the chat. Thank you, Rick. He knows what he's talking about. Purification is awesome. Everyone's given lots of Jurgen love because he deserves it. Total Peter Steele. Yes. Super cool. But I really hope that they get signed to a larger label that does a lot of solid Doom releases. Just totally disappointed that record fell completely quietly and no one talked about it at all. Wrathchild Records, please, if anyone can correct me, is that even still a label that's functioning? But I'm so sorry that they had to release that. I'm sold based on that clip. Okay. Thanks, Ted. TJ. Okay. Okay. Let's move on from doom. Let's talk about some grind. Now, I do want to say, like, there was a great video that Pat over at Ground Zero Salem just put out talking about grind releases in 2023. It was a great year for grind. He just, I want to say, yesterday put out one on hardcore punk. So if you're looking for more grind recommendations, I will not double dip and pick his choices. I've got some different grind releases I want to talk about. First one, let's talk about a Sulfuric Cautery. Okay, this was released on 625. I think, yeah, 625 Productions. And this, for people who are trying to gauge what kind of a grind this is, they previously had a release with Human Effluence. It's pretty extreme stuff. And what I mean by that is like almost not quite Last Days of Humanity kind of deal, but let me just play a clip for you and you'll kind of get a brief glimpse into what I'm talking about here with Sulfuric Cautery. Hey, now we're having a good time. All right. So, yeah, super intense record. This probably was the most extreme thing I listened to. Like, out of all the brutal death metal and grindcore stuff that I picked up in 2023. Yeah. Ping. Yes. Incredible drumming performance. But what makes a band at this level interesting to me is even if you're only going to get a song for 45 seconds, if you can make a single moment of that, like a riff that may last in total 5 to 10 seconds, if that like absolutely grabs me in that 45 seconds, I know how hard it is to write something. Well, I can't say from experience, from listening. So much of this stuff goes by and none of it is memorable. The fact that you can string together a riff that like brings me back to a very specific song on a record that has 25 different songs and it lasts 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh, no way. Evan. He's bringing to New Orleans. There we go. Perfect. Well, this band rules. And I can only imagine what this must be like in person. Okay. Vlad's looking for some. So I hope, I mean, this is, there's 2 grind records I'm going to show. Once again, I'm going to also refer you that you check out Pat's video. He did a great job chronicling a lot of the grind that came out this past year. There's 2 records you can add to the list that I'll be talking about. So, but one, this is out of the 2 that I am going to bring up. Sulfuric Cautery is the more just absolute bonkers choice. Yeah, snare does sound like a cooking pot. There you go, Tyler. 100%. Really intense stuff. But I mean, again, like I have an appetite for this, and 100% this got it for me. One more song from Sulfuric Cautery. Yeah, nothing but pitch shifted vocals during the course of this listen either. So that problem with grindcore, I mean, I can totally get where you're coming from, Mike. Like, it's not the most. I mean, as even heavy metal listeners, like it is super difficult, I think, for it to grab onto it a lot of the time. And a record like that, I don't know, I can't sort of justify it or explain it to you, but that this record for sure, out of all the different super extreme brutal death metal pinging snare, cooking pot snare stuff, that one 100% got it right. So let's move on from. Yeah, it is going to be. I can only imagine. I'm super jealous, Evan. Sulfuric Cautery rules. Okay, so let's change some pace here. We move from that kind of a grind release. What do we want to go to next? I've got a couple of other CDs. I think I pulled together in total 15 different things to talk about. Let's talk about some more vinyl. Here's one. Okay, so this is Book of Ruination by Melancholia. We just did on the album club. This is kind of a sludge. I guess that's the first place I would place this band. But they sound so. What I was going to say is we just covered Today Is the Day, and that is a bit more of a noise rock like extreme band. What does stand out though is the drumming on that record from Braun Daler is exceptional, and this Book of Ruin Melancholia sounds like it's almost pulling a bit more from like the death metal side, like if I don't know, like Brain Oil or Indian, that kind of sludge. But the drumming here, when I first heard it, really stood out for me, and yeah, these black metal. Okay, we'll now we'll do some black metal next. How about that? Fester Decay. Yeah, that one got a lot of love. Fester Decay, you know, Japan does gore grind really well. Yes. Well, let me play a clip of this sludge. I mean, I guess Fistula, yeah, but like Brain Oil, that kind of stuff where it's almost leaning into a death metal kind of voicing in terms of guitars and vocals. It's not quite the sad wrist slitting affair, but for me, just the drumming on this really stood out. I'll play a clip here for you. Yeah, really dug that. And I guess that carried this record for me. I was looking for a sludge record, but a lot of it's just so slow paced, and I was getting that from my Doom. To get this kind of an energetic performance as a drummer really grabbed me, and it made my end of year list. Is on Brutal Panda. This is their debut full length. I listened to an EP previously on cassette. Excuse me. Get some water here. Talking solo all the time. Take a break. I'm gonna say it's. Oh yeah. I'm once again. Everyone gets to see the good grind shows. So we've got, you know, Evan's got Sulfuric Cautery going to see him. Maya's getting a chance to watch Fester Decay. I get no love over here in Paris, Kentucky. What are you gonna do? Okay. But yeah, this is like on almost on the death metal side of sludge, but the drumming performance here is absolutely exceptional. Just one of a genre that probably does not get the same kind of attention as like a death metal or black metal. We'll talk about some black metal next. Don't worry, people. But here we go. This is one more clip from Melancholia, and we will move on to the next release. All right. Get a little drink in the background here. Yes, you do. That is something you get a chance to see. I'm so happy to see you here, Maya. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Okay. So people are calling for some black metal. Okay. So this is The Gloomy Radiance of the Moon. Has anyone heard this? I think the second full length from this one-man project. Now, it's symphonic black metal, but it definitely pulls from the like Obsidian Gate or Portugal's Sirius, where now I think it was released on New Era. Yeah, on New Era Records. And which is they play a lot of, like, they sign a lot of raw metal, black metal acts, and the production to the guitars here definitely reminds me of a band that would be playing on New Era. But you add in how heavily invested the synths and keys and sort of background choral orchestration that goes into this. It really consumes a lot of the guitar space on this record. Initially, it was a little bit like off-putting for me just to get a symphonic record that is so explicitly invested in the production with the keys. Often they're sort of fighting for the same space, and I had to kind of sink into that. Eventually, it kind of won me over, and there are songs that really stood out. Yes, the cover art is pretty wild, right? But in the same way that like Obsidian Gate and Sirius are sort of doing big time cosmic black metal, right? Like if you wanted to do some nebula surfing black metal, like that is the album cover you want to pull from. I think this is the second full length for this project, and the first one is a little bit more on the raw black metal side. This for me is a bit more true symphonic. It's just sort of up in front and unavoidable is probably the better way to describe it. But let's listen to a quick clip from this project. Right. I don't know, like last year, Trolldom for me is probably like my leading symphonic black metal band right now. But I don't know how often we're going to get a release from that project, just because the Svarte Dobus guy has like 5,000 different black metal projects. And Trolldom, released 2 last year. They had an earlier EP. Anyway, this was a pleasant surprise, and it's one of those deals where like it can definitely divide black metal fans just due to how up in front the synth and orchestral work is. Ultimately ended up what has pushed me over the ledges. Like it was aggressive enough as a black metal listen, purely in the like raw production values, that I kind of bought in. And once I got used to, like, I'm getting more and more invested in symphonic black metal. Some of the people here in the chat are gonna, I definitely, Peter's one I can thank. He put me onto that Sirius record, and that one's got synths all over the place. It's super kind of classical, almost goofy at times. This never strays into that sort of like cheesy side of symphonic black metal, just because of how raw the production is. But it is, if you're looking for that style, like you want to be the lonely vampire in the castle doing your symphonic black metal, this is probably not going to be for you. So we'll play one more track or clip from Gloomy Radiance of the Moon. I don't know if I mentioned the title of this one, Hidden in the Darkness of Fallen Mastery. This is the Gloomy Radiance of the Moon. All right. Has anyone heard that? Okay. We got Valdrin. Yeah, that Valdrin, I know I got the promo for that. But I haven't spent enough time with it. That and Fathamage. I don't think I'm familiar with that project. Bargrave, yeah. Tons of reverb. You're right, Mike. It is all over that record. Definitely a rougher mix. But if you know anything off of New Era, that totally makes sense. I even have another black metal listen that's devoid of the synth stuff. So if you're like, screw that symphonic stuff, just give me the raw black metal. I've got another pick coming up later for you. But nevertheless, move on from there. So we got a black metal listen. Let's see. Okay. I want to pull up the information for this next band because I think it's sort of pertinent to the discussion. But okay. So you've probably noticed like there's not a lot of death metal picks here. Okay, let me write it in the chat for you. Simon's requesting that he needs some symphonic black metal in his life. So I would imagine, Tyler, you are every single day getting new black metal in the mail. Yeah. Yes. Okay. As long as the mail can get to you. I have no idea. You aren't snowed in. Yeah, Vlad, it's definitely some symphonic black metal is just it's too much for me to take, and so I totally get it. When you're like scrolling through a list on Metal Archives and you get a band recommendation that says symphonic black metal, it's like you hit play and you brace for something. It's just going to be a guy in a cape with a rose that he's bitten into with Dracula teeth. I don't want that, please. Path of Mage is great too. So I like Caladan Brute. Summoning for me is kind of I think we talked about this, Jimmy, when we did the Desert Island Black Metal. Summoning for me is kind of a challenge. I'm not gonna. I just never completely bought into it, but I'm much more of, if you want epic black metal, I tend to lean towards the Greek stuff. Like Macabre Omen is where I will usually go for that style. Yes, but I was going to talk about some death metal. So yeah, once again, this is another example to my tastes in the genre. I mean, you look at the album art with this. This is Gaffed. Isn't titled Die Already? I mean, this takes me back. This is why I love 2000s death metal. Like, the album artwork is just like such a tremendous fall from grace, right? No gorgeous painting or stencil work, this could be just computer generated art. Like I nothing about this. It's so unassuming. There we go. TJ, I hope, please, you'll enjoy it, man. 100%. Purification rules. I totally wish they got more love. Okay. So, yes. But the album artwork from death metal in the early 2000s was just so, I don't want to say terrible, but like when in general, album artwork was kind of working in this I don't know, like trying to do digital artwork and all the sort of very like detailed. It's a tremendous fall from grace. I think I can only imagine what Lee at Heavy Art Talk would have to say about it. But what it was like, this didn't look cool. It definitely wasn't trendy, right? So it just had to do with people who were into the genre and who wanted something extreme to listen to. And when I got this recommendation for Gaffs, I just saw someone had pulled it up purely based on sort of the background to the band's history. So they have roots in New Jersey, a band that was originally called Blasphemy and then Ritual Torment going back to 1991. So part of the sort of like brutal death metal scene that is emerging in the Northeast in the early 90s. Anyway, that they sort of reemerge after all this time period and come together, and they put out a record. And this sounds to me somewhere between like Deicide and Deeds of Flesh, which are influences that I think were far more prominent during the time period that I'm referring to as to like where I'm most interested in death metal, especially American death metal. So this is like, it sounds like early brutal death metal, but there's no sort of slam dynamic involved here. It's a little bit more of just aggressive stuff. There we go. Well, apparently a few people have picked up the Purification. It's just an independent release, Rick. So hopefully they're getting it. But let's listen to some of this gaff, and you'll hopefully get an idea of what I have in mind here. Right? Like, it's not death metal that's trying to live in a cavern. It's not super proggy. It's just going back and looking at a very different time period. But these are, musicians that have been around since the early 90s. So I was super happy. This was released on CDN, right? So not a like super cool label or anything like that. And it's not going to live on the artwork. It's not going to live on brand recognition with the label. It's just going to have to do with you understand that this band was around essentially at the early 90s at a formative time period in American death metal history. They've reemerged back in 2023 to put out a brutal death metal record that would have sort of lived up to that title back in 1991, 1992, to reassert itself, all these decades later, but still sort of playing in a style that isn't explicitly derivative, right? Like, I think I completely hit the mark for me. One of my favorite death metal albums to come out this year. And, this kind of stuff I will continue to search out. It still kind of brings out, I would say, like, that part of you as a collector that's looking for something that is very specific, to your tastes, that you don't want to be handed. Like, the Majesty's record is a great record, but I can't escape $20 spin. And for some reason, there's no logical sense for this, but like, I end up running in the opposite direction because it completely crushes the part of me as a collector that likes to hunt something down. So, and that on that note, let's listen to Gaff and we'll move on to our next pick. All right. So there we go. We got Gaffed done. I'm going to go check out my list here. We're knocking these out. I tried to make this. I just picked up 15, so it shouldn't be that long. But let's go back to some thrash. Peter talked about this one earlier. So this is Nube Negra by Demoniac, Chilean thrash. So I did make a video this past year talking about the historical, political, economic, and military forces that contributed to the making of the Chilean thrash scene. If anyone had missed it, you may want to go check that out. Anyway, I'm, in terms of like heavy metal scenes in the world, the Chilean thrash scene for me is hands down one of my favorites. And they're consistently putting out really, really good stuff. Demoniac, I spent a lot of time hyping up Misconception by Critical Defiance, and it's well-deserved hype. For a lot of the same reasons that I love that and Coulter record in terms of pulling the proper sort of a Bay Area sound that it sounds like promising to a modern, thrash scene. Misconception by the Critical Defiance is the one I'm going to point you towards. Demoniac here plays in a style that sounds a little bit more like Sodom. So you have like a blackened thrash style here, but also like Mekong Delta. It's a little bit on the
proggy tech side as well. There's horns on this record. So that may be a turnoff. And initially, I didn't know how to read that. Like, I guess what I would say is I didn't know if they were trying to go for something kind of like, since it's an black metal style, are they trying to do something kind of occultish in the same way that like Necromantia, you know, like you listen to a Necromantia record and they've got these weird sort of horns and strange sort of journeys they venture down. And it's part of their ritualism, right? It's like the disorientation you would go through, you know, if you were possessed or something like that. In that sense, it feels occultish. I initially tried to read the kind of, at times, experimentation instrumentally on this record in the same way, and I don't think that's quite it. Much of the lyrical content, it's all in Spanish. I spent the time to like read it and translate it, you know. Okay. Yes, it is a deadly album, Peter. And Mike, I wholeheartedly encourage you to, you know, there are a lot of great bands coming out of Chile. Like, and I would say over the past decade, probably the first one that really came to prominence was Ripper. And they played in the death thrash style, very much like Sadis, with an unbelievable bassist who now plays in Suppression. But those early Ripper records are unbelievable. And if you dig DiGiorgio's work through those first 3 Sadist records, please check out Ripper. You will 100% be pleased. It's hands down favorite band. Yeah, so let's get back to Demoniac. There are a couple of moments on this record that sort of venture into something a little bit more proggy, but for the most part, it's a black and thrash release. The last record they put out, once again, this is on Edge Circle Productions. The last release they put out had one song that I want to say was like 18 minutes long. They threw that concept sort of out the window on this record, so the songs are a little bit more manageable. I think the longest one's around 7 minutes. But first and foremost, I would say this is a black and thrash project with some very interesting kind of instrumental work. I'll play a clip here for you, and you get a chance to check out some Demoniac. All right. Anyway, that's a brief glimpse there. All right, Alan's out. See you, Alan. Got to crash. Take care. Thanks for stopping by. I will, I'm sure to talk to you soon. Great job on the stream with Mike and Jurgen the other night. I'm catching up on that one still. Blood Oath from Chile. Yeah. I mean, that one's a bit more like, I would say, proggy death. And I mean, the death metal scene, the doom metal scene in Chile, I think they're developing more of a black metal scene, like one of the best countries out there. In some ways right now, I would even like they may eclipse Brazil in terms of like a country that's putting out more and more great material that may be blasphemous given the history of Brazil. But I probably pick up more records from Chile now than I do Brazil in terms of South American sort of younger bands. But, you know, this year, if you have not, between Inculter and Demoniac, like I probably got more out of these records than I did. It was so cool to get really 2 quality thrash records. And for like, that's not a genre that I would say succeeds on an annual basis putting out quality releases. It too often sounds like incredibly dated or cliche. So between Inculter and Demoniac, you have 2 awesome thrash releases in 2023. I highly recommend. People are, I forget who it was early on in the chat said that they couldn't find any good thrash this year, but those 2 records I will highly recommend for you. As we get out of here and talk about the next record, I'll play one more Demoniac clip for you. Did I ever hear Coprofago from Chile? Cynic, Meshuggah, death kind of stuff. A lot of fusion. I have not heard them. The one that I love is Inanna. I'm guessing you're probably familiar with them, Jimmy. But I mean, they've got 3 full lengths to their album, to their name, and last year had one of my favorite death metal records. That was kind of proggy, kind of Lovecraftian. I'm guessing you've heard them. If anyone in the chat is looking for, I think that might be my favorite Chilean death metal band. I have to think about it quick, but yeah, Inanna is amazing, 100%. Yeah. Okay, we're getting some love for them in the chat. Have you? I mean, I would listen to all their stuff. If you have not, the first 2, yeah, I would say they're a little bit more on the proggy side. The last one was super dark and heavy, but I love all their stuff. 100%. Yo, Mike, there's some very interesting guitar choices for Demoniac. No way. Okay, I'm calling that. Okay, if there's a new Anata record, Simon, I call review. I'm doing it right now. Do not take my Anata from me. If that happens, they've been promising a record for a long time, though. I want to say Jack in the chat has talked about, like, there's been one teased for years. Because the last one was what, 2004 or 5? It was a long time ago. Like, I mean, in terms of Swedish tech, it's like between them and Spawn of Possession for me. They play very different styles, but between those 3 Spawn of Possession records, really the first 2, the third one is kind of out there, but Anata is unbelievable. One of my favorite 2000s death metal bands, even though I think the first record comes out in 98. Yeah, I can't get enough of that stuff. 100%. Yeah, the first one, I mean, I totally agree, Jimmy. Their first one is so good. But I mean, I like the second one also. Like, one of those bands that is super cool. Okay, let's move on. We just talked about some thrash. Conductor's Departure with 2005. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. So I hope they come out with a new record. Simon, do not take that shit from me. Those are fighting words. Okay, let's talk about another record here. So we'll move on to some vinyl. Okay, I want to talk. I mean, this is something that I really don't. I'll preface. I guess you want to. This is kind of a atmospheric / post metal band. I don't even know what to call it. But this came out very early in 2023, and I think because of I don't know if it's just production time was slowed down due to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, or if it was just actually vinyl production. But I guess this band is called Rye, and they sound like a mix between like Shape of Despair, Wolves in the Throne Room, a little bit to me. There's like they're halfway Funeral Doom, halfway kind of atmospheric black metal, kind of meditative stuff. But it was a nice sort of change of pace for me. And I'll play a quick little clip here for you. This might also be my headphone album of this. Like, I don't know if you can hear, but the bottom end of this record is enormous, which kind of is the Funeral Doom side of things. But it has that kind of like saturated warm, lit from within, atmospheric black metal sound that I immediately associate with the Cascadian style of black metal. Anyway, like in terms of a post metal listen, I mean, it's a band like Pelican, right? Like this is mostly instrumental, uh, so it has that like kind of smoother, very modern production to it. But there are vocals. The pacing and weight of it reminds me of Finnish Funeral Doom. The production and sort of guitar choices at times are very atmospheric in terms of the black metal side of things. But this is their second full length. I think it's just a one-man project coming out of, I don't know which part of the world, if it is within Russia. Yeah, it did. It came out way early in the year. It's just like, I want to say within January, like around this time in 2023. And I picked it up and I kind of just hung around with it for a while. It's mellow stuff. It's definitely, you put on and you hike up a mountain kind of stuff. So I would imagine the hiking metal crew would really dig this. And yeah, play out one more clip of this and we'll move on from Rye and my post metal choice for 2023. Okay, let's go back and let's completely switch gears to some grind. Okay, so this next one, I mean, the band members involved should sell you immediately. And I just want to get this right before I show it. I think we're about 2 hours in. Thank you, everyone who is hung around here with me. Okay, so this band's from Czechia and features members, the bassist from Pathologist, the drummer from a bunch of different bands, but most notably for me, Heaving Earth, and then the vocals and guitarist from a Polish grind band called Meat Spreader. All of those are winning points in my book. But this is the second full length by Sick Sinus Syndrome. And I'll play a quick little clip here for you, and then we can chat about it. Yeah, so unlike Sulfuric Cautery, this is a little bit more on the regurgitate, general surgery, almost like a Swedish guitar tone. You have the dual vocals, kind of like the scream, pitch shifted, and then lower death metal stuff in there. What's so cool about the like bands who came after Carcass was there was already like some element of punk in the riffing style, and it really shines on this record. Regurgitate, when I go back and listen to it now after years of listening to like the hyper sort of blastier stuff, your ping snare grindcore, you listen to a band like Regurgitate and you can hear how much like the hardcore punk scene had really influenced their playing style. And there was that death metal style as well, but there was certain elements where it was like, man, this is such a punk song or such a punk riff. And it completely changes the energy or vibe on a record. You take a moment like that and you put some palm muting and a double bass and it just takes it to a next level. The songs here are a little bit more drawn out. It's not just funky and chunky. Yes, that is a great way to describe this band. Or I'm sorry, fucking chunky. Yeah. But, when you could get like in a couple of minutes, right? So these songs are longer. They're by no means death metal. But it almost has a Swedish guitar tone. It's got the varied vocal approach. I want to just pull this on the inner, whatever you this gatefold out, and I can promise not to drop anything. So I don't know if you can read this, but sick sinus syndrome still hails and salutes to all original pathological grindcore bands who inspired us to make this rotten slab. Yes, you can hear some of them in our music, but who cares? Like, there's something unapologetic about the bands that they are worshiping, and they do it in a way with that kind of pedigree. I don't know if there are people out there who are listening to Pathologist or who know Meat Spreader or Dead Infection, I think, is another frame of reference here. If you dig that kind of gore grind and grindcore, this band's going to speak to you. I 100% love this record. And then another thing, I don't know, I didn't know that sick sinus syndrome was an actual medical condition. So once again, they're sort of pulling from that carcass, actually describing some element of human pathology. But we're going to leave you with one more clip here with sick sinus syndrome. All right, we're making our way through the pile. I'm almost done here. Yeah. Oh man, Dead Infection vibes, 100%. Okay, I think I just got 2 more picks here. 3 more. Okay, I'm going to break this up. So, next one. I mentioned how this was a great year for the more sort of avant-garde black metal stuff. This is one, I guess it's their last record, and they've sort of, I don't know if anyone could quit being a band or decided they don't want to make any more records and moving on to something else. But this is Urfaust with Untergang. Man, this band, I guess they started, if you listen to their early stuff, it's like somewhere between, raw black metal, but also heavily inspired by like the doomier aspect of Bethlehem. And I think they're from that. They're not German. Maybe they're Danish. People in the chat could correct me there if I'm wrong, but the later portion of this band's catalog ends up sort of traversing like Satanism through toxicology. Like if you were to, for that part of old world kind of like medicine and alchemy that was sort of seen as a cultish, at the same time trying to understand like how humans would respond to various poisons, essentially, whether what turned into medicine and healed you and what actually potentially killed you. But Urfaust, they immediately kind of delved into that subject matter. This poor soul. Anyway, Dutch, thank you for the clearing it up there. Tyler's got me in the chat. But this is their last record, and out of everything that was a bit more odd and weird in terms of the sound, Urfaust was the one that I kind of kept on, returning to, and as their last record in the catalog before they finally retire, it's one also that I kept that in mind when I was listening to it. Let's listen to one clip of Urfaust. All right. So there is our Urfaust record. I don't know people have what they think. Tough for me to fully get into. It is a weird listen. It's not an easy listen, Tyler. I totally get it. It's their latter portion of their catalog also is increasingly more experimental, right? Like there's not really vocals, just weird sort of chanting kind of stuff going on Van Records, and they've got a bunch of other projects they're involved in as well. But I, in terms of their sound, I completely bought in, and by comparison to the other bands like Dothamsgard or Blut Aus Nord or um, Dantifaxit, like bands that were sort of pushing the boundaries of black metal here this past year, that was the one that really grabbed me, and I kept on coming back to. So I'll play one more clip of Urfaust, and we will get coming down to the last two records here. Okay, well, that plays another bootleg from Ben. I'll put in the background here. Mystic Force. All right. Okay, so 2 records left. So we're going to head back to Chile, and we're going to listen to talk about a Doom record. This band is entitled Mortajas. I think loosely translates to shrouds in Spanish. On Sun and Moon Records. Escape the glare there. I pulled out the Capilla Ardiente record, Siege, early when I was talking about an epic doom album. This didn't quite reach that level for me. Hold on, Josh is in the chat here. Oh, well, Josh is a fan. Sweet. Yeah. But let's talk about Mortajas. So this band plays epic doom. There's I don't know if you want to call it prog. So they sing in Spanish, and I think that reminds me of a band from Puerto Rico called Dantesco that also sung in Spanish, and it kind of changed a little bit how they approached epic doom. I think it's an interesting concept, how the way you approach vocals. There's a different way in which you can also it provides inroads into melody vocally. But this band's also delving a little bit into traditional instruments that would be coming from this part of the world. The third track here, Bajo un Nuevo Sol, or Under a New Sun, that song includes some interesting acoustic instruments. And then the one that I'm going to play a couple of clips from is Las Palabras de Silencio, or Words of Silence. That song for me steals the show. This album alone is sort of worth the second track off this record. The way it sort of builds towards the end. I'll play 2 clips, and the first one will be a little bit more on the build up. The last portion, the last clip I'll play for you is sort of when it's in its full sort of heroic moment. Let's listen to the first clip here for you, and I'll kind of set it up. So it's in one of there's her slower moment, but I mean, if you are a fan of Procession or Capilla Ardiente, the doom bands that are coming from that part of the world, this is gonna at least speak to that style. I do want to say though, those bands are clearly coming for sort of the Candlemas throne. This Mortajas album, because they don't focus on a lot of the same subject matter, it's much more like philosophy, which is almost tilts. He makes you think that they're going to play a little bit in the proggy style, but they don't quite get there. It's more just divergent by comparison to the bands who are just doing Candlemas clone stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. I love that style. Candlemas is one of my favorite metal bands, but it's nice to see a band sort of take something that is rooted in their country. We're so comfortable with that narrative in black metal. To see a band in epic doom sort of traversing that a little bit, I think is pretty cool. So, yeah. Okay, let me hear maybe one more track and we'll move on. Okay. That's Mortajas. And this is entitled, I think it's just 2 is the name on it. So, second album from that band. We will move on to my last release here. I'm holding you past 2 hours. I'm trying to wrap this up for you. So, this last one, I mentioned Black Gangrene Records early on when we were talking about the first album I played. This is Blood Magic. This is definitely going to be my raw black metal choice. Band out of Seattle, I believe, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. But this label is kind of like on the rise, I guess, out of Portugal, and it's been around for over a decade or so. But it kind of come on my radar as of late. Cool, black and white sort of artwork there. But I'll play a quick clip here for you. Yeah. So the vocal here style is super gross. Like sometimes you get like a traditional, just really high rasp that's almost buried in the mix when you get like a black metal listen like this. It's super upfront. He's not doing the frog croak sort of deal. But it is a kind of like almost pukes black metal vocals. And yeah, it's got some interesting sort of synth parts that sort of act as interludes on the record. But for the most part, out of the bands that like I was going through, like Gauntlet Ring, I know Ebony Pendant got a lot of love. I'll definitely go back and revisit the Hiking Crew. There's a couple of records that they put on their list that I need to add to mine. But I'll play one more clip here, and then we'll kind of wrap up my choices. All right. So once again, that was Blood Magic. Yeah. It's like I said, kind of on the good, raw end of guitar stuff for you. So, yeah, for sure. Awesome. So I think that's everything I got in terms of albums I wanted to talk about. End of year kind of deal for you. So I'll take a quick little moment just to kind of talk about things that are upcoming on my channel. One, not on my channel, but I will be coming on the album club this week, and we're going to be talking about this record by Heir Apparent entitled Graceful Inheritance. This is the debut full length by a prog power band out of the US. Definitely in like the Fates Warning, Crimson Glory, if you're into those bands, in that style. This is the album artwork here is just sensational. This is the Eric Lanoy who did the album artwork for Manila Road's Open the Gates and the Deluge, just for reference. But we'll be talking about this record. And I will be making another a return of the Cut Your Teeth series regarding 2000s death metal, but I'm taking a little bit of a different angle here. That'll be coming towards the end of the month. So I would look for that end of January, and just a conversation about a specific album and its impact, its influence, and talking really about the question that Marty posed the panel on the stream, this where death metal is today, and kind of if people, not just a saturation conversation really for me, but sort of detailing since the year sort of in the 2000s where the genre has gone and where I kind of see it today and why. So anyway, that'll be coming up in terms of an upcoming video for you. There were a good amount of people here in the chat tonight, so thank you to everyone who stopped by. And I know people are probably tired of end of year stuff, but I did it in 2 hours this year as opposed to 8 last year, so I'll consider that a success. And once everyone who's we got still a good amount of people who are hanging out. I know Rick's got another stream on his channel. Oh man, I saw that you were. I'm sorry you're feeling sick, Simon, but trapped in a Sydney hospital. I feel better, man. I hope you're doing okay. Yeah, Tyler, thanks for stopping by. Jimmy, Mike, there are a good amount of people who were out here earlier. So I'll just wanted to thank everyone. It's just some stuff coming here on the channel, and not soon enough for me. But until then, once again, I'll just wrap up. Thank you so much for stopping by. End of year list is in the books, and I'll be around. You'll see me here soon enough between the Heavy Metallurgy channel and whatever's going on here. So there we go. Good to see you, smooches. All right, I got Ben. I hope you got the shout out that I got of your bootlegs rocking during the course of this. So, Josh, always a pleasure, man. Yeah, I will. I'll talk to you guys soon. Enjoy your evening. Cheers. Have a good night, you guys.